Going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We're going to take a look this morning at Meta Platforms, doing business as Meta and formerly known as Facebook. The ticker symbol is still FB. We are on Google Finance at the moment. Looks like the pre-market, so it's 4:56 a.m. on the East Coast. And right now, Meta Platforms is down $2.57, 1.2%. Once again, down in the red. So this is just Google Finance, pretty good platform to get some details on different stocks. Let's take a look over at the chart. So obviously this thing has been in trouble for much longer than probably most people would expect. Looking at this chart briefly here, there is no reason you should have been long this thing at all, actually. I mean, up in here you should have went flat or at least taken your profits, and then this was just a bunch of whipsawing. Probably would have got into some longs, but then quickly stopped out. And then the party was over at this lower high right here. Let's see here. Actually, it would have been quite tough to get into a short trade with this big gap down. That would have been quite a move to catch unless you were shorter from higher prices. Of course. So let's take a look here at Meta. We obviously have a massive gap to the upside. It looks like that gap is 247 all the way up to, let's see, 327. You do have some trading up in here, so I guess you could call it 289. 289 to 247, 248. So the thing with gaps is at some point they go back and get filled. So if you have some hope and you want this stock to go up, at some point, although it is tough to believe at the moment, we should see this gap get filled. It might be some time, but that is what gaps tend to do, is they go back and get filled. But right now, I mean, this thing looks horrible. I am glad we are not long. Former Facebook, known as Meta now. Let's take a closer look here. Unfortunately, any of those folks who are buying up in here are well underwater. So taking a closer look at the chart, we obviously put a low in there on, looks like the 24th of February. A little bit of a recovery rally, not much. And then we are currently sitting, looks like 202. So basically, if I was going to look into purchase this, which I'm not, but if I was, we have this rally here. So far, it is a lower high. We're pulling back. What I would want to see is somewhere around here, above this low here. This low was 190.22. We want to see a higher low get printed above the 190.22. Don't really care where it is, as long as it doesn't undercut that low. Look for that higher low, and then on the next swing up, breaking this high here, that 212. Let's get an exact number here. Looks like that was 213.15. Basically getting above that 213.15 area would give me that confirmation that a new uptrend is in place. The bottom is in, and we have created a higher low, and then that print of the higher high is what we would look for to start getting long this stock. This thing has a lot of work to do to the upside before it would get confidence from me anyways, and probably a lot of other investors who are pretty sour on this right now, especially if they are long from that $300 plus range. Unfortunately, this big gap down probably did some damage to some investors. But like I said, if you didn't already take your profits, or if you were not short this thing, I mean, this is what happens. So you definitely want to have some kind of an exit plan in place when you're trading. For the more active traders, even the long-term holders right now are getting pretty beat up on this. Like I said, you should have had some kind of a trailing stop that got you out up in here. I mean, you would have been long this trend up, and then you should have been stopped out somewhere in this area here and taken your profits. And you probably would have had some, once again, maybe some long trades in here, or even some short trades in here, but they probably would have been whipsawed out quite quickly without doing too much harm before something like this unfolds and you're down 26% in one day. So that is our thoughts here on Meta. Right now we are in what I would consider no man's land. We need to see, this is what I would be looking for anyways, is a higher low here, and then that next swing up, confirming that higher high could be the early stages of a new uptrend. And maybe that uptrend will go ahead and close this massive gap from the 247, 248 all the way up into here, 289. So if you can catch it with that higher high print, you could be good for a pretty good run to the upside. Now, it depends on the overall market. It depends on the NASDAQ. Right now, markets are quite volatile around the world. So, could you buy the dip? Could you be trying to do some bottom fishing down in here? Well, of course. But I did a video yesterday about a Russian ETF. Let me jump over to that chart real quick and show you something. So that video was yesterday, and I believe the close for it would have been 2 days ago. So that close was $7.19, and we mentioned that. Now, I'm not comparing this Russian ETF to Meta, or formerly known as Facebook. Just looking at the charts here, this could be any stock or any ETF you want it to be. So you could have thought this was the bottom here at that $7, and looks like we closed at 19 cents. And then look, once again, we're down. Yesterday was down another, what was it? 19%, another $1.40 yesterday. So that is the problem when it comes to trying to bottom fish, or, catch a falling knife, whatever you call it, is you don't quite know where the bottom is. Now you could have models or calculations or different indicators to, help hone in on something like that. But it's tough. I always say we like to buy strength and sell weakness in the early stages. And the early stages of weakness for this thing were up in this area and even much higher up in this area here. So that is our thoughts. And this is just a little example of some of the trouble you can find yourself in if you're trying to bottom fish, because you could have thought the bottom was up in here and 13 and then 10, and it just continues to drop. I don't know where this thing will be at today, but let's jump back over to Meta. Maybe this won't be the bottom here on the 24th and will continue lower. So that's why we like to see a higher low followed by a higher high, giving us that change in trend to the upside, and it starts to show more strength in the stock compared to continuing to drop, which is just more and more weakness. Taking a look up at the top of this, so higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So this was a nice uptrend here. We topped out up in here, August, September timeframe, traded down, and then a big key was this lower high right here. Looks like this was printed in November. That was a big concern. If you were still long after that, then you're definitely playing with fire, in my opinion. That was an early sign of trouble to come here for Meta, or perhaps it was still known as Facebook then. I have no clue. And then you actually got a lower low, which undercut, and you'll see that sometimes. You'll get an undercut of an important area on a chart, and it'll actually reverse to the upside, which it did here, and rally. Definitely. So what it did was it took short traders, got them into the market, and then whipped them right out because it rallied again. And then what do you know? What followed was another massive move to the downside to another rally, which probably whipsawed those short traders out. And then you get the huge drop to the downside. So you can see how markets can whipsaw you in and out of positions before making massive, massive moves in the direction that you were probably originally in earlier on. So like I said, you should have taken your profits, or you should have been short this, or, flat. If you don't go short stocks or ETFs or whatever, then flat was the play. And in our opinion, of course, not financial advice, we would not be looking to get long this thing quite yet. It has some work to do to the upside before we would consider getting into a long position here for Meta. We need to see some strength to the upside. And right now, we are in no man's land. Not too much going on here. So obviously the 200-day is starting to roll over. That is the 200-day moving average in red on my screen. It's starting to head south. But on the positive side, at some point, markets will start to move higher again, and we will fill this gap up in here. Who knows when, though? But it'll unfold one day at a time, and it'll unfold with creating a higher low and a higher high. And that is what we will be looking for here for good old Meta. I still want to call it Facebook, but I guess that's not the name anymore. Will it get back up to these crazy high levels up in here, the high threes? Hard to believe right now, but if you just play it day by day, get in at the confirmations of higher highs, when it starts to show some strength and you have some good trailing stops or some good trading rules in place, before you know it, you could be back up to that area. But that is a little far out for the time being. So that's what we're looking for. We want to see a confirmation in trend. We want to see a higher low take place and then start to trend up from there, printing that higher high. So just like markets roll over, you're getting that higher high. Now this right here was nothing but a higher low. Things are still bullish. What it didn't do was print a higher high. It printed a lower high, and the party was over right there. So if you flip that on its head, you'll get a lower low. You'll get this is nothing but a lower high. It's still bearish. The key is the next play, which is a higher low. You don't want to get a lower low. If you got a lower low, that would just be another confirmation that the downtrend is still in place. You want to see that higher low take place and then a higher high. A higher high confirming that new uptrend is potentially in the early stages of unfolding there. Now, of course, you can get whipsawed out, like right in here. You got that lower high. So, okay, there is some bearish things starting to come out of the woodwork. And then you got that lower low right here. But what did it do? It actually rallied and probably ran a lot of stops and whipsawed traders out. So that can happen. But hindsight is those short traders were correct. If they kept taking those trades, it obviously would have played out because the price is much lower now. So it's very interesting how markets know what's coming before news is released or earnings or whatever it may be. Signs of trouble definitely start to show way before most people will notice them. So that is our thoughts here on Meta. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. All the new subs, all of the current subs, appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to check out these videos. Be careful out there. These markets are quite crazy right now, and we do not know what will happen moving forward. Things are a little wild right now. Be careful trading leverage. Be careful using market orders. And as always, trade small so you can trade another day. All right, everybody, take care. I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care.